today I have the incredible honor of interviewing Johnny Estrella. He is a graduate from our Phoenix Dream Center. Thanks for being here, Johnny.
Hi, well, thanks for having me.
So Johnny, last week after church, you stopped my dad in the lobby and you said, Pastor Luke, I have a story about graduating from the Phoenix Dream Center, and because so many people gave to the Dream Center, my life has been changed. And my dad called me up and he says, you have to get this man on Hope Heroes. So I'm so glad you're here today. Now, Johnny, I don't know your story. I know bits and pieces, but tell me, how did it all start?
So my story, very lengthy. I grew up kind of in a rough neighborhood here in Phoenix. Actually, I'm born and raised in Phoenix.
Wow.
Grew up east side of Phoenix. It was a very gang infested area, drugs, and of course that was in my home also. My father was, he used drugs, so it was kind of tough being at home, you know. I didn't want to be at home a lot, so I would always just try and be outside with my friends. Of course, that's where the drugs and the alcohol gang activity was at. So as I grew up, I started getting involved more and more with that. Started going into juvenile halls for crimes and being involved in all this, you know, stuff going on outside my house, which was still better than what was going on inside my house, which is unfortunately so bad. So going in and out of juvenile centers starting at 13, started getting involved in more serious crimes, wound up being sent to prison. I wound up being there for 20 years.
Whoa.
20 years of prison, and still involved in all the stuff that goes on in prison, doing all the bad things there. And it came to a point where I was tired. And the way I came at him, I just said, if you're real, prove it. You know, this is my life. You know what it is. If you are, who you say you are, then you know everything I've been through. These are the things I need. I need this, I need this. I pretty much just wrote down all the things I need when I went into prayer. And if you are who people say you are, answer this prayer, and I'll follow you. You know my heart, you know how loyal I am, even into the bad side, you know, the evil side of this world. My loyalty has always been, you know, going 100% at whatever I did. And I told him I'll be 100%, and you know this, you know. And that was that. That was the prayer. And I still have 6 years left in prison after that, right? And a month goes by, the first part of that prayer was answered.
Wow.
Few other get answered 2-3 months later, another one, and another one. And of course, I was chalking it up to, it's coincidence, that's coincidence.
Yeah.
Now I know that was the enemy.
Wow.
Long story short, by the end of the year, everything on that prayer list was answered, and I had nothing but, I was in awe. I was in awe, and I started praying. I said, okay, Jesus, now I know you're real. Like, where do we go from here? What do I do? What do I say? How do I serve you? How do I follow you? Because I had nobody to teach me, no one to walk me through the word, nobody. And I just figured, you wrote the book, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to pray to you. I'm going to read it. You reveal it to me. And that's how I did. I prayed. And that night when I said, what do I do? How do I follow you? What do you want? Like, am I created for something? Because that's what I keep hearing. Everybody's created for a purpose. And that night I went to sleep. I had a dream. It was like a cluster of grapes. Take all the grapes off, and that's what my dream was. I just seen it. It was plain, the vine, the branches, and I was like, okay, that's weird. Woke up. I cracked my Bible, and because I was reading it daily after that, night and day. I wasn't going nowhere else. Figured I'd get in the Word. And I cracked the Bible that day, and it was John 15. I am the vine, you are the branches. And in that dream, when I asked him, what do you want? When I seen that branch and the vines, he said, I want souls. That's it. Tell people what I did for you, you know? And since then, I've just been going right there where I was, doing the things I was doing in prison, the same people I was doing it with. I started with them. And in jail, you know, people walk with the Lord, then they don't. They walk with the Lord, then they don't. So they thought it was one of them relationships. But I was doing things with them in there, so they realized, okay, there's something to this because we know you.
Yeah.
You know, we know you, and we're doing things with you. Like I was walking them into the things, I was leading them in there doing things, and so when they seen the change in me, like I had their ear, I had their attention. They started praying with me. They started ministering. They stopped doing drugs. Long story short, here we are 16 years later, and I haven't done drugs, I haven't done alcohol, and been walking with him ever since.
So how does the Dream Center come into play?
So getting out was the next step. I walked another 6 years in there, and which was a blessing because I knew who the Lord was by then. You know, I built a relationship. I was strong in His Word, and I was away from all my bad habits. And so coming out, there was this guy that was in there that used to be at the Dream Center. He would always tell me about the place. He said, "Oh man, you would love it. You're in here always preaching us. You're always reading the Word. You would love this place." And I was like, I'm going home from here, you know. I'm not going to a Dream Center. Sure enough, God had His own plans that helped me actually to get out a little sooner because it's a placement, and I didn't know God was setting me up to serve Him. And my plan was pretty much, I'll do whatever you want, wherever you want. You know, I'll put myself aside. You put yourself aside for me on the cross. So, I wound up applying. I talked to a pastor. They accepted me. I went to the Dream Center. At the Dream Center, I went through the discipleship, graduated discipleship, phase 1, went into phase 2. Shortly right before I graduated my phases, the pastors invited me, Pastor Brian invited me up to work with the youth. Started working with the youth ministry. I was just driving a shuttle, taking these kids out of the projects, picking them up every weekend all over the city, taking them to skate parks. It was a skate ministry, actually. I stayed there. I just continued to work with the youth ministry. I would just drive the shuttle. As time went on, I started talking to the kids a little more. Before you know it, I was a youth director there. I started preaching to the kids. I started teaching them every weekend. We had church, we had service, we had an outreach. It was awesome.
And you met your wife at the Dream Center.
Yes, I met my wife there. She was a director of the women's discipleship there, as I was the director of the youth. We met there. We grew out of the Dream Center, of course. It was time to move on. We're now married. Actually, in 2 weeks, we celebrate our 4-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yes, we have a child. We have a 3-year-old. She's beautiful. It's the biggest blessings, and I'll never forget when I cried out to the Lord that day in the cell, and where my life is now. It's amazing.
Well, you also now own 2 businesses. Tell us, how did you get there?
Yes, it's one business split in 2. I have when we're at the youth ministry, of course, we need to raise funds. We needed to come up with events for the kids to draw them to the church so they could hear about the Lord. And of course, I had all these ideas. I used to be a tattoo artist, so I knew art. I knew how to design on paper with a pencil. I started getting into computer graphics, got some Illustrator, Photoshop, started playing with it. I started designing t-shirts with the Word, you know, and things that will inspire people, lift them up, scriptures, and awesome, just, you know, getting the name of Jesus out there. So I started printing and selling them out to other churches, other youth groups, companies, and we started bringing in money for the youth group, and I funded it for a few years. And I had the machines after we grew out of the Dream Center. I still had all my equipment, and I continued. I started a business.
Wow. Yeah. Now, Johnny, what I love about God is that He can take someone who was in jail, make them a married man, make them a father, and an entrepreneur. You have done a complete 180 in your life. Do you believe that the Dream Center and that discipleship had a big part in playing into this future that you're a part of?
Oh yes, big time. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the Dream Center. It helped me in so many ways. One, after 20 years in prison, how to transition just to live out here, live a normal life. How the pace out here is so fast compared to just sitting in the cell and going through the motions in there for so long. It helps you to transition. It helps you to how to slowly, you know, get into you know, being a citizen out here, you know, and how to serve him, it helped me so much. I already met him, I knew him. Now the Dream Center helped me to outreach and tell people about him, how easy it is to just set up a stand and get some food, some clothes, and people, it draws them just to hear the words so we can minister to them. While I was there also, they had a ministry, the Rescue Project. And while I was there, I knew they would go out there and get girls, and I also became the director of that outreach.
Wow.
That went out there into these alleys. Like I said, I grew up in these streets. I knew where everything was at. I was the guy behind the scenes that led a team every Friday night. We'd get flowers, roses. We had a hotline where they can call, and we'd sneak it to the girls, and they would call. Homeland Security would tell our pastor where they were at. We'd go in, get them out. And even while we were out there, we were even praying with the guys,
wow.
the pimps and the people that had them trapped, and they were coming to the Lord.
Johnny, I think it's so cool that God was able to use your past
Yes.
for ministry
Yes.
in your future. Now, what would you say to someone who is considering giving to the Dream Center or has given in the past? Why is it so important to give to a ministry like this?
It changes lives. It changed my life. There's no words to say what the Dream Center did to me. They give people like me a chance to be in leadership, to teach, they take the time to, you know, they're patient with the disciples there. They walk me through how to use computers where I had no knowledge of computers
wow.
when I got here. Now I design. I'm a supervisor at a psychiatric center where we help people that come out the streets, and all I do is run computer programming there. And while I was there, one of my roommates was the IT director there. Only God can do something like that.
Yes, thank you, Johnny, so much for sharing your story. It's so inspiring to hear how God can use what we have been through and use it as an outreach to people in our future. Thank you for being on set today.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
The Phoenix Dream Center gives people a second chance at life. No matter what you've been through, no matter what you're going through, the Phoenix Dream Center is here to help. And if you don't need to go to the Dream Center, but maybe you want to support the Dream Center, go to phoenixdreamcenter.org to find out how you can get involved.